33 soldiers who were kidnapped earlier this week in a jungle region of southeastern area of the country. Now, the soldiers were abducted on the 25th of August following clashes in the Retorno municipality that left 11 guerrillas dead, including a commander of a dissident faction of the former FARC rebel group. Let's listen in to what the commander of the Colombian military forces had to say.
Hacia la vereda de Nueva York, zona rural del municipio del Retorno, en el departamento del Guaviare, esta noche fueron liberados nuestros valientes soldados e infantes de marina que fueron secuestrados, aislados y presionados bajo extremas condiciones, pero jamás fueron vencidos.
Meanwhile, authorities say that the area remains a stronghold for armed groups that rejected the 2016 peace deal, and it is a strategic corridor for drug trafficking with extensive cacao crops. Now, the Defense Ministry has also accused the group of recruiting minors and pressurizing civilians in order to oppose the state forces. Joining us on the broadcast is Major General Dr. Rajan Kochar. He's a senior strategic and defense expert, joining us live from New Delhi. Thank you so much for taking our time speaking to us on NewsX World. What do you make of the recent news that 33 soldiers who were earlier kidnapped by rebel forces in Colombia have now been released?
You see, Pia, this issue in Colombia is a long-running cycle of armed conflict, a weak state control in rural areas, and this is not the first time we have seen things like the Colombian army being targeted. It has happened previously also, and especially after the peace accord 2016, there was a peace accord between the revolutionary armed forces of Colombia called FARC and the right-wing paramilitaries with the government. But not all rebels were disarmed at that point of time. We see these kind of conflicts in other parts of the world also whenever peace accords take place without UN intervention. You see, what happens is that if you get the UN involved, then a sense of stability comes to the region. But here we don't find any UN involvement. So these ex-FARC fighters have rejected the peace deal, and they are normally operating in areas like Guavar, Coca, Aroca, and Catatumbo, which are basically the drug routes, and the illegal mining and extortion networks are actually rampant here. As you would be aware that Colombia is the world's largest producer of cocoa. That's the raw material for cocaine. So this cocoa cultivation remains concentrated in the rural areas where the state has got little control over this thing. And that is why these cartels, these drug cartels, and they are quite armed. Actually, they have, private armies of their own there. And the rebel groups, they create a cycle of violence and instability. The villagers there are influenced by these drug cartels, firstly out of money, secondly out of fear. So they tend to cooperate with these FARC rebels. And this is what has happened. These are basically ungoverned spaces where government or the Colombian army has very, very little control of these areas. And that is why this kidnapping of 33 Colombian soldiers, mainly by the villagers who were actually mobilized by the rebels. And they are, most of them in these villages have got their sympathy with the rebels there. So I think in times to come, the Colombian government will have to take control of the rural areas, because these kind of armed groups, drug trafficking and weak governance will continue to destabilize these rural areas. So I am of the actually firm opinion that these forces, and Colombia is not a very large army. It's only 2.3 lakh active, military personnel. So they will have to have a strategy of military pressure, peace negotiations, and rural development programs, because it is very important. Whenever we have seen insurgency, even in our northeast, where we have seen how the insurgencies were actually controlled, and if we apply that kind of a template to this area, then rural development programs on how to generate employment, their health issues, their education sort of facilities, and their well-being of these villagers and the rural areas, it is required, because these rebels today are almost 4,000 odd fighters there. It is something like, if I can give you example of Baluchistan, what is happening, the BLA is also around 4,000 to 5,000, and they have their writ in the rural areas. In the urban areas, they don't operate, but in the rural areas, whenever the Pakistan army is there, they will carry out ambushes, IED blasts, and things like that. So a similar kind of strategy I see here also in Colombia, where in the rural area, this FARC is quite dominant.
Absolutely. So you'd refer to the fact that this is quite common. Even back in June, there were 57 Colombian armed forces personnel who were abducted. Thank you so much, Major General Rajan Kochar, for taking out time speaking to us on NewsX World. Meanwhile, viewers, we're tracking more news. We're learning that the American Jewish Committee has now expressed that it was troubled by recent criticism of India from the US officials in a strongly worded statement. Now, the AJC has acknowledged concerns over India's energy ties with Russia, but has emphasized that India is not responsible for Putin's actions. Calling India a sister democracy and a vital US strategic partner, the group has stressed that New Delhi has a key role to play in global power dynamics. The AJC is now urging a reset in US-India relations. Well, viewers, that's all the time we have for now. More news and updates on the other side. Stay tuned on NewsX World.